afternoon. I hope everyone's feeling nice and relaxed on the afternoon session. I just had a very nice lunch. I hope you've had enough coffee to keep you going. And I hope that I'll manage to keep you awake for the middle of the afternoon session. You can already see something about me here. You've probably seen my name in the program. You may not know Santa Clara. Santa Clara is a small little town which belongs to Coimbra in the centre of Portugal. Here's a little map. That's where I live, that red ring in the middle of Portugal. I've been working there for the past 27 years. Mostly with primary students, but also with a range of other students. I've been a teacher and a teacher trainer, and I've been a director of studies, and also the founder of International House Santa Clara 12 years ago. And so this is where my life has been. Just to flick back, we're going to be talking today about, yes, primary children, children learning language, children learning grammar, and how on earth does it all fit in there? Obviously it does. We all, by the age of 6, came to the point where we were little sparkling language learners. We picked up our first language just like that, and children all over the world do. We'll see how that works and how it corresponds to the second language learning when they come into our primary classes a little later. So, let's click Portugal again and take a look at an example of how grammar and language learning sometimes seems to young children and sometimes also seems to teachers as a slightly frustrating experience. A short cartoon which I found, which I think illustrates it nicely. Here's the first picture. You can't quite see, but it's a family on their way on holiday to spend the weekend. Now we can see the family. They're small. We couldn't see them before. Father and son in the front seat. Can anyone read that little back so I don't have to read it out? Can you see that clearly? Okay, good. There we go. That seems familiar. The point where the grammar comes into the class can too often be the point where the children go, oh, grammar, or in this case just, oh, school. And have you had that feeling where you're trying to provide useful correction to your students, helping them towards correct language, and it's just not going good? This is maybe how a lot of people feel about the teaching and the learning of grammar. And there's something important that didn't happen in that kid's head, a learning opportunity that was missed because some brain function didn't quite kick in. And this is one of the things we're going to be looking at. So let's just run through the aims for this session today. We're going to have first a little chance to share some of our possible misgivings, and at the same time, some commitments to some common and current classroom practices, things that I've been doing for many years. But there's two sides to how I feel about them. Sometimes I feel, should I really be doing this? And sometimes I feel, aha, no, this is good, solid practice. We'll have a chance to share something about this. What I want to do is then try and tie these and later things into actual neurological processes going on in the brain. How children learn language, and how children and people in general learn other things other than language. And I'm not a neuroscientist, but I'll be sharing with you what I learned when I was doing the research for this session. These neurological processes, I think, have very clear classroom implications in terms of how we deal with the children, the type of activities we do in the class, the type of space we give or leave or remove from their interaction. And we'll be looking at some of the activities that I think grow out of our logical extensions of the neurological processes, the brain processes. And what happened to me when I did my research and I looked at this and I drew some conclusions and I thought, oh, I'm doing it right. And I think there'll be a lot of that going on when we share some ideas and you talk to each other about what you do in the classroom. You'll see that it really does tie in. And a lot of what we do in the classroom and a lot of what we take from course books actually does tie in with these ties in soundly with these processes. So I hope there's going to be a feel-good bit in the middle. And after that, I'm going to take you through a section of materials. As you can see here, I'm also representing Macmillan in a sort of soft way. And I was the author of a series of books which have been published this year, which are grammar supplementary books for primary children. So I'll be sharing with you just a few of those materials and showing you how they can make the most of children's capacities, how they can excite children's effective learning in the classroom. And finally, if it all goes right, we'll be walking away and I'll present a flexible paradigm for what you might call effective learning in the children's classroom. The ingredients that need to be there, the way that we can combine them, the things we need to remember, and it's a broad, as I say, it's a broad paradigm, it's a broad program, if you like, for how we can get language across to children and hopefully help them to really fix it and remember it. There you go. That's where we're going. So, next, let's talk about some things that, as I say, we often do in the primary classroom. Are they advantageous or disadvantageous in terms of effective learning? These are things which I've got to say I've been doing for decades, literally decades. And they're things which are taught when people learn how to work with young learners. And they're things which make common parts of well-known course books and common approaches to teaching young learners. The first thing I'd like to ask you to do, and I'll be asking you to talk to each other a few times during the session, is just have a quick chat to the person or people next to you, whoever's handy, and see whether you think there are advantages or possibly just disadvantages or possibly just advantages of these common practices in the classroom. We're not going to have a lot of time for this. This is a current thing that people say, I haven't got much time. So we'll have a couple of minutes to talk about it. And when we need to come back together, I will learn a technique which I learned from a Mario Rinvolucri session a few years ago. I'll be waving at you like this. So and if you see me waving like this, can you wave back? And by the end of it, we'll all be feeling like idiots waving to each other. But that will be the signal for us to come back together. But right now, 2 minutes, talk to the person next to you. Advantages or disadvantages of these common classroom aspects and practices.
I think there needs to be
imitation, I say gender, I think where you get them to just repeat back what you've said, where they're doing that's helpful. It's like you and the teacher would say, I'm feeling great, let's get it together, they don't realise that's actually what I'm feeling. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because this is our thing to get something else that sounds a bit wrong. I think that imitation in general is more valuable. If they don't want to say this, then it sounds like I'm not a fan of it. See, I tried to get it to say anything is better than just
thing. They look at me and go, huh? But we're in more civilized society. Thank you. Now, probably, definitely not time to take ideas from all corners of the room. So I'll just feed in some of the feelings that I have about blue aspects, and then you can see if you agree. The rapid pace and change of activities I was taught was a fundamental aspect of teaching young learners. Of course, yeah, I think you probably all agree that children do have that shorter attention span. But to keep them going all the way through a 50 or maybe a 90-minute lesson, they need changes of activities and changes of focus. You need to get their eyes from the page up to around to each other. Yes, of course, they need variety, but at the same time, I know that I have been guilty of being so fixed on pace and variety and excitement that I've forgotten to leave the quiet time where things need to settle. And we'll actually look at an area of the brain that needs quiet time to function properly. My two feelings about pace. I like pace, but, oops, sorry, wrong one. Labeling or compartmentalization, it said on the other one, didn't it, of language. Yeah. Saying, yes, today we're doing the present simple is labeled the present simple, and you say the present simple is made by the auxiliary, blah, blah, blah. Now, obviously, we all know as well that children learn languages in a much more holistic manner, especially their first language. Nobody teaches young kids the present simple. At the same time, as you're moving through a course, and children are conscious of the fact that they're actually following a course, it's a nice way to signal achievement. We're doing something new today, and you can mark it with a label or with a praise for what's gone before. But when you're learning your own language, you have no labels, and even after you learn your first language, the brain is perfectly capable of compartmentalizing new language that comes in. It's useful for the teacher, it may be useful for the students, it's not essential for the language learning. Where are we going? Input is a whole theory of imitation, learning by imitation, which obviously has holes in it because if the children only imitate what they hear, then they never make original utterances. But, of course, imitation is an excellent, condensed and intensive way to put language in and to get it coming out. And to have them playing with language a bit, it can be great fun imitating things in different voices and in different characters. So imitation does play a role. But we do need to leave time for the variety and creativity which will make the language real to the children. Can be fun, it's not going to be everything. Correction. I once attended a session by Michael Lewis. I don't know if anyone has attended a session by Michael Lewis. He loves being controversial, and in one session I saw he said that correction is completely pointless. It doesn't do any good at all. Someone put up their hand and said, but I can remember being corrected, and it made me more effective. I changed the gender of a word I was getting wrong. He said, that wasn't correction, that was information. Thank you, Michael. But what is true is that studies done with parents of kids learning their first language, parents who focus on correction and make a point of correcting their children's approximations, incorrect approximations, those kids don't reach full fluency and syntactical ability any earlier than parents who pay no attention to correction. You may feel better as a parent thinking you're helping your child towards accuracy, but it doesn't seem to make any difference. On the other hand, it's a form of feedback, and as we'll see at the moment, feedback is an important step. And then wouldn't it be nice, independent construction of grammar, have you ever had that fantasy where someone will deliver to you a class of 6-year-olds, and until the age of 12 you can do whatever you want with them. You can just feed them all with input and stimulus and videos and books and stories and crafts, and they will magically, as happens in their own language, draw the language they need, organize it in their brains, and emerge the other end as fully competent users of the language. I think if we had enough time, it could well work. But, as in probably most of our situations, we have a limited amount of time, so we're trying to condense again and intensify that classroom situation. We can't really, in the classes that I teach, maximum 3 hours per week, leave children to make up or to draw all their own conclusions. I actually think that I'm doing some good by guiding them towards finding their way. But it'd be lovely, wouldn't it? Give me the child when he's 6. I'm sure some famous said something like this. Give me the child when he's 6 and I will make him syntactically accurate. That's not exactly because it all has to do, apparently, with time. 10,000 hours is, according to Malcolm Gladwell, I don't know if anyone has read Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote a series of popular psychology books, one of them called Outliers, and he examines why very ordinary people became fabulously successful. And he says, when it boils down to it, time was the #1 factor. Opportunity also, when he's talking about Bill Gates to play with computers that other kids maybe didn't have when they were young. But time, going up to that 10,000 hours, is the big important one. And when we're talking about language, feedback is the other one, which will help the children compartmentalize. Damn, that word. Will help the children fix, organize, consolidate the language in their heads. Not the sort of feedback where we're correcting, but the sort of feedback where when they try something out, and the person who's listening to them goes, huh? Then something in the brain is going to go, whoops, I have to try and reformulate that one the next time I use it. It's not conscious, but feedback helps language settle and become more fixed and principled. Children follow this in their first language, this very common and probably well-known progression. At 6 months, they start babbling and making those baby sounds. At 12 months, approximately, they'll start producing their first words. At 18 months, they'll start putting 2 words together with meaningful units. At 24 months, the morphological markings will come in. They'll start separating singulars and plurals, and presents and pasts. They'll start using ings when they're appropriate, and adding these bits to make words more meaningful. At 30 months, according to a scientist called Laura Ann Petito, who works in Toronto, at 30 months, syntactical utterances are becoming the norm for a child who is 17 months, not even 3 years old yet. And syntax is becoming a natural part. Moving all the way up to 6 years, when she says, in her words, the kid is done. That's her. 6 years, the kid is done. They have a vocabulary of amazing 14,000 words on average, and they are using sophisticated syntax. An expression of what they want to. Obviously, there's going to be little errors that creep in. 5 and 6-year-olds still make word order errors. They're still experimenting with something, but they're getting there. Now they're near the 10,000 hours. I just did some math. If we say that from the moment the child is born until the moment they reach the end of their 6th year, if possibly 4 hours per day they have exposure to input, then 4 hours times 365 days times 6 years gives around 8,700 hours. That's taken them to very near the age of 6 expertise level. It ties in again. A few more years and they're going to be at the level where they are fully formed native speakers. After that, it's fine-tuning. It's adding sophistication. So that's first language. There are areas in the brain. There's a brain. There are areas in the brain which are completely evolved to deal with this type of language learning in the first language situation. And again, according to Laura Ann Petito, they're active maybe until the age of 10 at the maximum. But between the ages of 6 and 10, they're starting to damp down. exactly at the age where we get them in our primary classes. So we need to look at how general learning works. And we'll be talking about various areas of the brain. I'll be giving a quick overview of the neurological processes and seeing how this affects learning in general and how we can apply it in our class. But let's, okay, first I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to move to a more sophisticated, detailed, scientific look at the brain. Stay with me, see if you can understand it. It gets a bit complicated. Here's how it really works. We've got blinky in the eye department. We've got radar in the ear department, and there's the appropriately named brainy in the brain department. This is from a comic strip called The Numbskulls from decades and decades ago with the Vino. Now my question to you is, imagine that you are brainy, you're working in the brain department, you're getting input from blinky and from radar, you're preparing cruncher for output. How would you organize language in the brain? If it was up to you, if you were brainy and you were given that chance, how would you like to organize language in the brain? How many compartments would you make? What would you put in each section? Just a quick chat about this, just a minute to see if you can understand the task that Brady has, and then I'll try and explain what happens according to the legislation. Anyway, how would you do it? If you were Brady, how would you define language?
So maybe there is like a brief interaction, so it's like a bit this is a very good dinner with gravy. Gravy's of course kind of small, it's got actions you've got to have. Carefully might be hot for the hands so they don't just grab it, and then you have the nose to sort of smell the gravy and the meat. Yeah, maybe you need to tell somebody to get ready if it's like a really heavy meal, so it makes all these get the throat and the pet just freezing down. Like that. You think having a different part of the brain. So you have other drawers like this, it's moving towards you, you sort of tell the tummy, but it's not like it's massive because it's thick to the head.
With language, how many people do you write on language?
Yes.
How do you develop a language?
A little frivolous question, but wouldn't it be nice if we could divide that up into, so here's the present simple section, here's the ing or infinitive section. Again, the experiments done by Laura and Petito, whose name is coming up quite frequently. I read a series of articles in the Toronto Star, Popular Science, that's my type of science, Popular Science, where she explains how she carried out experiments with young children, feeding them linguistic input. She had these contraptions on their heads and she is doing different types of scans, and she was able to see which parts of the brain were lighting up when she fed them meaningless sounds, meaningful sounds, and stretches of syntactically organized language. And she decided that there were three main sections. Now this might not be big enough to read from the back, so I'll just talk you quickly through it. The first area that comes into focus and is formed in the brain is the whole phonological system. The babies being exposed to their first language will start to form, not this side, beg your pardon, this side, it's just here, just above the left ear apparently. There's an area called the left superior temporal gyrus. You don't need to know these names, I'm going to forget them instantly. But there is where the phonological system starts to be stored. Next thing that comes online, and it's sequentially, it follows the same development of their language. Next thing is the one at the top, the left inferior frontal gyrus, where meanings are stored, where the structure of the words, including those presents and pasts and singulars and plurals, they're stored in a different area, apparently. And the last one, Broca's area, which is where more complex conceptions of language are stored, how sentences are put together, how syntax works, how things can be sequenced, and also, interestingly, how this flow of noise that comes at us can be segmented, decoded, and made into understandable utterances. So this is all built into the child's brain. Fascinatingly, experiments that have also been done, experiments, not the right word, studies, showed that children, deaf children who are signing and learning sign language follow the same patterns. At the same age they start babbling using their hands. At the same age they start joining words and making variations of those words. At the same age they will start producing longer syntactical sentences. I don't sign at all. This is not anything. Like that guy who signed for Obama. It wasn't me. But it really seems to be genetically built in. Let's come back and look at what's happening there in the brain. And it's the limbic system, there it goes, that I'm particularly interested in. This is what I learned by thought was fascinating. The limbic system is important because when we receive a stimulus in terms of input, it might be visual, but it might be linguistic. Then there is an excitement of the neurons in the brain, neurons of which there are billions and billions and billions in the brain. And the excitement is caused by something called glutamate. And the basic role of glutamate is to say to the neurons, hey, 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 hey. And the neurons go, what? And so stimulus produces some sort of reaction, and there are connections made between neurons. Along comes our good friend, and it's a good friend because if glutamate kept going, our brain would burn out. Too much excitement. Dopamine comes in. Now, why is dopamine produced, and where? It's produced in the limbic system, and it's an emotional reaction. Dopamine is produced when there is some emotional reaction and emotional involvement with the stimulus. And that, if that does not happen, then the stimulus will be depressed, as apparently the terminology is, and the learning will not take place. Sort of what happened with that kid in the car when the learning situation turned into a boring situation and it was sidetracked and forgotten and it never came to anything fruitful. But if dopamine, the emotional thing, comes in and it continues the reaction, that's when learning takes place. So in other words, there is no learning that can take place, according to what I read, without emotional contact, emotional involvement and engagement with what we are being presented. That's what the limbic system is so central. The more times it's repeated, the stronger the connection will be. These connections actually become physical. They get coated with a substance called myelin. You don't need to remember this. But these patterns will be stored eventually in the cortex, and they will become part of our automatic and unthinking behavior. But it all starts with neurons in the corpus callosum, the involvement of the limbic system, the production of dopamine, and that's where the learning takes place. Emotion. So my next question is, here's where you're going to talk again. How can we involve emotion in the classroom? There's lots of ways, and I'm sure we do it on a regular basis. When I looked at my teaching and thought, how do I do it? I'm not, I must admit, a particularly touchy-feely guy. I don't get emotional. I don't watch romantic movies. That's not me. But there are many ways in which I think I and we all provide emotional engagement in the classroom. Have a quick chat to the same or different people near or around you. What do you do, activities or approaches that you use in the classroom that make the emotional engagement? Have a quick talk, we'll have 2 minutes and I'll wait at you again.
Whereas a lot of Japanese teaching when I was at
You're good at this. Just on the other hand. Still good. So, I'm not talking about the big, dramatic Scarlett O'Hara type emotion. It's the things that we do on a general basis, but once we start recognizing how we involve emotion, we can really capitalize on it. Here's some of the emotion and some of the ways that I think I fulfill this. There's the ooh, wow emotion, which you get in young kids when you present them with things they never imagined before. Facts about animals. I showed a video to my kids of elephants swimming. Have you ever seen that video from, I think it's the series The Planet Earth, where they show elephants swimming, and my kids were like, no! That's an emotion I love to see. The other emotion which we can quite easily activate is the instinct maybe towards competition, and the fact that kids love games. Do kids love games? Do kids love games? Hello. Of course, this is one of the emotions that can go a little bit too far sometimes. We'll come back and talk about that in just a minute. But the urge to show what they know and to show they know more than the other team, their partners, etc. That's one that can really excite them. There's the emotion of what? The guessing that I'm not going to tell you yet. Keep guessing. What can it possibly be? It's as simple as playing Pictionary. I'm going to draw something on the board. What is it? And then, oh, is it? And there's hands going up in the air, and curiosity and the will to find out the end of the mini mystery we are presented with is emotion. We can very quickly. There's the emotion of the unexpected. The unexpected is a wonderful way to fix ideas. There's a great book called How to Make Ideas Stick by Chip and Dan Heath. The unexpected is one that they really concentrate on. If you can bring in something that the kids are not expecting, and we can do this through stories, storybooks are ideal. You turn the page and that is going to be a memorable moment for them because of the emotional involvement. A little bit later in their lifestyle, the little kids will love it as well. MTV videos that show people falling on skateboards. And they kill themselves laughing, and it's an unexpected moment, and why not? They're all okay at the end, we told them. They didn't hurt themselves. Humour as a general approach. Humour that the teacher can bring to the classroom, but especially humour that the children can bring if they involve their creativity. And isn't it wonderful when children find that way that they can say something with simple, reduced or minimal language that they have, and they can make other people laugh. That's a great emotion. The them and for their colleagues. I tell you, this one was important for me. The fact that when I was a kid, I must have been such a teacher's pet. I wanted my teachers to like me. That was my emotional connection with my teachers, especially my French teacher. I learned French the traditional grammar translation way. I learned lists of vocabulary. I learned tenses all split up. There was almost no interaction. I don't remember any of the materials we studied, but I loved the French teacher. And I wanted him to like me. And so that was my emotional connection. If we can get to know our students and make that personal connection, that's another valuable one. And just that beautiful emotion, which is very important for me, and here's me going on and on and on. When I finish here, I'm going to go and sit somewhere very quiet, probably the men's bathroom, and just relax, because you need quiet time. I'll let you have some too, but you need quiet time. And that relief, that time that you can take to relax and let things settle, is its own important emotion. So I don't know about you, but having discovered that emotion was so important in the classroom, thinking about what I do, and here it is, it's nothing radical. I'm sure there's things we all do. This is my feel-good moment. Oh, I already bring emotion into the classroom. I already make this emotional engagement with my students, and I'm sure it happens in your classrooms too. Now we can see why, or at least now I can see why it's so important. A very quick word, just has to be very quick, about the amygdala. The amygdala is what can turn children and all people overexcited. The ones who will have a tantrum in the middle of the game. The ones who say, it's not fair. The ones who are going to overdrive. When the amygdala is in charge, it's the part of the brain which prepares us for fight or flight. It provides adrenaline. When that one's in charge, the learning's not going to take place. But if we let it settle down, and if we let the adrenaline clear, and we have some quiet time afterwards, and some focus afterwards, then, having potentiated the connections, then we can get on to the process of learning. But we have to remember that when the amygdala and the excitement is in overdrive, that's not when learning takes place. Wait a second. Okay. Oops. So, as I said before, in 2012 and 2013, it seems a long time ago now, it's been launched this year, I was involved with the writing of a series of supplementary grammar books called Grammaticals. I'd just like to share a little bit of material with you. These materials work on certain levels. They do not provide that whole list of emotional connections that we just looked at. That's the teacher's job to really bring those into the classroom. But materials can do it as well. And the range of contexts that these books bring in, and the amount that I learned from writing these books for 7- and 8-year-olds was really quite exciting, especially writing the teacher's notes. I learned loads. It works on the basis really of, say, highly contextualized, visually attractive, hopefully interesting, new, challenging, exciting information about waterfalls, about deserts in this situation, studying comparatives. In other areas of the book, we talked about the weather in different hemispheres. We talked about patterns in nature, where you can find cubes and triangles and hexagons in nature. We talked about ancient Rome. We talked about mobile communications technology. We talked about science and the human body. We talked about people who were important to us in the community. We talked about road safety, amazing animals, a whole compendium of facts which hopefully will make the children go, ooh, and excite that connection with learning. It's also set up in a system that provides the children with the opportunity for quiet time, of course, and persistence, which is another incredibly important factor. There's a bronze, silver, gold system. where, having had their presentation, they're then asked to do something a little bit more cognitively challenging. They're talking about the incredible figures and facts about the oceans here, and putting it into something which is a little more extended and challenging to produce. They move on to something where they get their own choice of how to apply the language. It's again a little more challenging. This is the silver stage, and finally the gold stage, another layer of language. We're talking this time about superlatives, another layer, and there's a chance to consolidate the language, and finally and importantly, consolidate it in a personalized way. The children are asked to produce a holiday guide for their own country, visiting the biggest, the best, the most amazing, highest, longest, hottest, coldest areas of their country. And they're taken not through just a few exercises, but through 6 pages of, oh, well done, now try this, it's going well, how about this? Good, you're nearly getting it, one more time, one more time. And the persistence which this encourages is the final, I think, very important factor which goes to make the successful learner. Persistence, without persistence, they're not going to get half as far as their potential might allow them to. The quiet time, of course, the time for reflection, the time when those quiet people have just to let things settle, think things through. They're not overruled or I can't think of the word, but they're not drowned out by the louder, hand-in-the-air, shouting out ones. At school, I was a quiet one, and I quite often got sidelined by the louder, noisier, more excitable students. You need to give time to the quiet ones, and just start to think of them. So here, grammaticals can give the opportunity to excite the ooh, the wow, the quiet time, and the persistence, which I think will help them consolidate. And so here we go. This is just, as I said, the flexible paradigm, if you like. If we're going to make our children, or give our children the opportunity for effective learning, then there has to be some stimulation. If there isn't any stimulation, the brain connections and the neurons are just not going to be excited. Glutamate is not going to get in there. It's not going to do its excitement job. If there's no emotional involvement in what they're doing, dopamine is not going to get into the process, and the whole learning process is going to move from one of potentiation to depression. It's going to fade away and disappear. There has to be emotion. There needs to be the opportunity for quiet and focus. Things have to have the time to move from short-term memory into long-term memory, and they can't do that if you're constantly putting more in. Quiet is essential. Persistence, personalization, experimentation, as we just talked about, they're the things that are going to make it individual for each student and give them the optimum chance to learn. And overall, if they're positively engaged, then that's going to bring the best possible outcome at the end of their learning time with us. That's, say, a broad paradigm. Someone has just told me end session now. So I just have one more message for you, which is dopamine rocks. Don't forget, you need dopamine. I can sell you a lot. No, I can't. But that is what's going to make it happen for your kids. There's my email address if you want to contact me about any aspect of this. I need to move out because someone else needs to come in, but I'll be available to talk to you outside the corridor. Carol is going to hand out some little freebies that go with the grammatical book as we move out. Thank you, Carol. And thank you, everyone, very much.